We have some great news from Volkswagen. Yes, they are still keeping the Jetta here in the United States. And the weird thing here is they're keeping the manual for the GLI Jetta, but they ditched the manual on the GTI Golf, if I'm not mistaken. And that does not make sense to me whatsoever. But thankfully, we still have a manual Volkswagen that is not a crossover or an SUV or anything like that. This is a proper, good-looking sedan for a very great price as well. So what we're going to do in this video, of course, we're going to have a look at the front end, compare the front, the side, the rear, and the interior to the previous Jetta and see what's up with this design. I do think it's still a beautiful looking car. Before we do that, let's have a look at this article from Car and Driver, link down below. 2025 Volkswagen Jetta gets refreshed and the GLI saves the manual. Thank you, Volkswagen, for keeping the manual in this car. The 2025 Volkswagen Jetta has received a light facelift. It's actually not a new generation, it's just a facelift, with sleek looks and a new standard 8-inch touchscreen. I do believe, didn't they put a 12-inch in the Golf? Another thing that just does not make sense to me. This is a bigger car than the Golf, but it still keeps the manual and it still gets an 8-inch touchscreen instead of the big 12 one in the smaller Golf. It doesn't make sense. The powertrain remains the same. The GLI retains its optional 6-speed manual transmission. Pricing starts at $23,220, which I think sounds like a very good deal. That is not for the GLI, obviously, but still, pretty good deal. And it goes on sale later this year. Throughout the first quarter of 2024, the Jetta was the brand's third best-selling model. So it feels a little hopeful to hear that, because sedans, as you know, Ford, no more sedans, and everybody's ditching the sedans, but the Jetta is still going strong and saw its sales surge by 185% year to date. Not bad at all. Looks more streamlined than before with slimmer headlights and a thinner upper grille. I think it looks good. Which on the Sport SCL and the GLI features an LED light bar linking the headlights. And of course, this being 2024, you can see that right here. We do have an LED bar in the back as well. Something that I don't think necessarily the Jetta needed, but they gotta jump on the bandwagon here and just put that into this design as well, I guess. The SC wears 17-inch wheels, and the GLI comes with 18-inch wheels. I'll probably put 19s on this. 18 works fine for the Golf proportions, but this being a little bit bigger of a sedan, I think 19s and lowered it 1 inch would make it very, very good looking. So as I said, you have an 8-inch infotainment screen standard across the entire lineup. It replaces a 6.4-inch touchscreen that was standard before. Automatic dual zone climate control is also standard on all Jettas. Great. Wireless Apple CarPlay. Android Auto is also standard. So you get a lot of cool tech that I want in my cars as standard for this base price. Not bad at all. The powertrain remains the same, unchanged for 2025. You have a turbocharged 1.5-liter inline-4 with 158 horsepower. Not a lot of power in that one. 184 pound-feet of torque. Front-wheel drive, 8-speed automatic. The 6-speed manual that was previously offered on the S and S Sport are no longer available. You can only get the manual with the GLI, which also comes with the larger 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, pumping out 228 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque, and that is definitely the one I mean, there's no question. 158 horsepower. It's great for a car that you just want to get you from point A to point B, not really have any excitement driving that car. But since I can only get the manual and it's also more powerful, definitely the GLI is the way to go. GLI also comes front-wheel drive. You can have it with either the manual or a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. You got bigger brakes for the GLI, a limited slip diff, adaptive dampers, and a sportier exhaust. And look at this beautiful 6-speed manual right here. You also have IQ drive system now as standard, which is a bunch of sensors all around the car. Radar, front and rear, in front camera, an array of ultrasound sensors. Standard again. For this price point, it just sounds almost too good to be true. And the design, of course, is also looking very good. As I said, starting at just over $23,000. So with that said, let's jump in Photoshop here. And I do think the new one actually looks better than the old one, because the old GLI had this funky little thing down low at the bottom of the bumper. You can see that right here. This little thing down here, I always felt that this does not feel like it's it belongs in this design. And we also have a lot more curvatures in the front. And for example, this grille goes all very far down, but the good news here in the old one is that with the pre-facelift, we still have the bumper being intact, so a clear separation between the top half and the lower half of the graphics. And the headlights also look pretty nice. The hood design clean as well. I do wish these lines had some sort of a connection to what's going on in the front end. They don't really do that. Maybe this line right here from the A-pillar going down, as you can see, into the same line as the headlight here. If we want to look for some sort of connection, I think that one would be it. Now looking at the new one here, I think it looks more expensive than the old one, similar to what we talked about the previous video I made. Sometimes when you just clean up the design of the Golf as well, it just makes it look more expensive when you have less styling in the front. And you can see how they managed to transform this little red feature into a much more beautiful looking line here down at the bottom, looking very, very clean. Now we also have these very organic looking fins. That is very unusual for Volkswagen to implement something that looks this organic in the lower section of the car. We also have new headlight. You can see that the grille shrunk by a lot, and I do think that helps this design, because now we don't have this dip that like we have here. Instead, we have one clear chamfer right here. Beautiful classic design with this chamfer for the bumper that now sits right in the middle, in between the two key features. Up top, the headlight, the grille up top, and the lower section with the intakes down here. Beautifully done. And in addition to that, we also have this light bar now that stretches across into the headlights right here and into the grille itself with the GLI badge up front. Looking very, very cool. If I were to pick one Jetta though, it's gonna have to be the 2019. I think that had even more clean design than this, and if you put some cool wheel and tires on it and lowered it an inch, it would be a very, very good looking car. However, this still, in my opinion, looks better than the 2022 model pre-facelift up here. Now looking at the side view here, we have the big trend going on here in the side view for sure. You can see that in the wheel design, because this was even a trend back in 2022 to have the wheels be black. Now in this case, I would not want to have the wheels be black. You can see down here how it looks like it's just a big black hole. I can't see the spoke design, even though they are beautiful looking wheels. The design itself is very, very nice looking. I love this simplistic styling with the spokes like this, but I want to be able to see it properly, and I can't do that when it's all black. Now looking at the overall side view, not a lot of changes here since this is a facelift. I do like that we have this shoulder line here like we have intact on the new 2025 as well. You can see how it cuts in the corner, both the headlight and the taillight as well. Beautiful sedan proportions. I'm glad to see that we finally, or we still have, a sedan that is selling really, really well. And I think that says something, that people maybe don't want to spend a lot on luxury sedans, but just normal everyday sedans like the Jetta, like this. People are actually wanting to buy sedans in this price point. They also still have the manual transmission. You can clearly see how they cleaned up the front end, both in the front view, but also you can see it here in the side view. You don't have this angle going down here. Now it goes straight forward, straight ahead, giving it more of a stately approach with this beautiful chamfer here and a confident bumper in the front end. Looking at the rear end here before we have a look at the interior, I don't really think there is a lot of changes going on in the rear. Not what I can see here. Yes, there are some styling changes to the taillights, and this is what I'm talking about. I didn't feel like the Jetta needed the taillight, the light bar here in the middle. I actually prefer, in this case, I prefer the 2022 styling, because this looks so much cleaner than just having this light bar here in the middle. It's not a full light bar, but you can see the plastic, the red plastic goes all across here, and it feels almost forced to have that. We need to have this trend in the rear end. Let's just put a light bar in there, but it doesn't really make sense for me for this specific car. It doesn't look like a Jetta anymore because of this light bar. Even though it's not a bad looking design, it just looks more Volkswagen to have it like this, separate taillights like we have up here, beautifully done for 2022. The lower section doesn't look any different at all. I think we have the exact same diffuser and exhaust pipes down here, which is not a bad thing because this integration is also very beautiful, very subtle. It's not too aggressive. We don't need that for this type of vehicle. But thankfully, we do have symmetrical rear end. So we have exhaust pipes, dual exhaust pipe, one on each side, looking great. Now, last but not least, this interior, same thing here. I know I prefer the old interior up here because look at the integration here. We talk a lot about integrations of infotainment screens, and that is a big deal right now because they're getting bigger and bigger and companies are having problems, or they simply just don't care to integrate those screens beautifully in the interior like it was here for 2022. Even though it was just a 6.5 inch in this case, I would much rather have a smaller screen that feels like it's a part of the interior. Just have a look at this beautiful chamfer here, creating a nice framing and housing for this infotainment screen. We still have a fully digital gauge cluster here with a clean housing to it. The GLI steering wheel here looking beautiful. You have GLI down here. Fat steering wheel with some proper grip here on the side, perforated leather, 6-speed manual, and tactile buttons. This interior was just absolutely fantastic to me, and I would definitely prefer to have that instead of what we have here in 2025. Thankfully, they did not just ditch the housing for the gauge cluster. We still have a very similar gauge cluster like we have in 2022, but the biggest change happened here. Look at this. Look at this integration, if you can even call this an integration. They had to up the screen size for who knows what reasons, but they just wanted to have an 8-inch, I do believe, in this case, from 6.5. That means that we need to fiddle around with the framing for it, and it doesn't look nowhere near as good as this 2022 integration up top. And in addition to that, look at this beautiful array or control panel here, with the buttons and dials like we have here in the middle. And now instead of that we have these sliders or more plasticky flat bottoms and sliders for the climate control settings. Stuff like this, it will never make sense to me. Why are we making it more complicated to adjust these settings that we so often adjust when we go for a drive? Why not just keep the original, the old integration here? You can just redesign the dials if you want to make it a little bit more modern looking, but still have the same functionality instead of adding all these sliders and stuff that we have in here. But thankfully, we still have, of course, the 6-speed manual in this case. So I'm glad to see that Volkswagen is still going strong with the Jetta. It's always been a favorite of mine because of the price point, and it's also a very fun car to drive. Even though it's front-wheel drive, it would be nice to see an all-wheel drive version of this with the 6-speed manual, maybe 250 horsepower or something like that. Maybe a Jetta R would be great to see. I'm not sure if they actually sell that in Europe. But overall, I'm looking forward to seeing these, specifically the GLIs, out on the roads.